All right, Year 12, I'm just going to do the first couple of questions here to give you a hand with this trigonometry. We have done it before. You should be quite okay with this. But I'm going to go through it again just in case you have trouble. And I would like you, if you can, to make some notes as you go along. So trigonometry, which we're using in right angle trig at the moment, we're going to expand that into non-right angle trig later. Remember that when you find sine, cosine, or tangent of any of the angles, like this, that's going to be a number. And when you press it on your calculator, you're going to get a number. And it will be a number for sine and cos between 0 and 1. Tan can get big. Tan can get bigger than 1, for example, tan 58. And if I pull up my scientific calculator here, if I go tan, oops, we'll clear that. There we go. So if I go tan 58, I didn't go tan 58, maybe I've got to 58 and tan. And there we go, I get a number of 1.6. If I go sine or cos, so for example, sine 60, I get that. It's less than. If I go cos 60, 0.5. I'll always get an answer between 1 and 0. So once we have established that, we know that all these answers here are going to be numbers. They're going to be values. And this, when we do these ones here, doing the inverse, remember that we can do the inverse of these to find what that value is. So if I get my calculator up again, and this is going to be hard because I don't know how to use the inverse function on this particular calculator. We'll see if I can do it. So 1 divided by 4 equals, if I go, I don't know how I get inverse cos up on this. I'm not sure. Let's see. Scientific. Yep, that's what I wanted. Anyway, I've got my other calculator here. And if I go inverse cos of a quarter, which you should be able to do, inverse cos of 0.25 or a quarter, and I get 75 degrees, and I hit my magic button, and that'll be, so inverse cos of 1 on 4 will equal 75 degrees, 31 minutes and 20.96 seconds, which is 76 degrees. Now remember here, you have to be very careful. Halfway mark in degrees, minutes and seconds is 30. So if it's over 30, you can get it as a decimal. If I press my degrees, minutes, seconds button again, it comes up as 75.5. And I know as a decimal I would round that up. And that's for finding an angle. Now, all of that should be knowledge or content that you already know. So how do we use this to solve equations or different types of equations? And that's what these are. These are trigonometric equations. That's what we're going to do. So I've said do 3C and F, so I'm going to do B and E for you. So you can do it on your own. So 3B. Now, the first trick, I'm going to write my 3 rules up here. So to solve trig functions, trig problems, the first step, you have to pick the right ratio. And you've got a choice of 3, sine, cosine, and tan. So if I'm looking at 3B, and it all depends on the angle. I know that 28 is the hypotenuse. But what side do I have here in relation to this angle here? Well, that's opposite, and I don't have that side. And this is beside, or in this case, we use the word adjacent. So I have adjacent and I have a hypotenuse. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the formula sheet, because a formula sheet has it on it. And it'll say cosine. Cosine is the ratio I want to use. Now the second step, write an equation, because that is what it is. You are writing an equation. And you go cos of the angle, well, it's 43, equals adjacent, well, that's x, over 28. And the third step, which is very easy, solve the equation. Now they can only give you 3 different types of equations. And the first one is the one we've got here, which is finding a side. Now remember, cos 43 is a number. We're dividing by 28. We want to get the x by itself, so we're going to multiply both sides by 28. We're going to multiply by 28. So I will get 28 cos 43 equals x. And that's going to be a number. And I go to my calculator and I go 28. And by the way, I'll make sure my calculator has got the D on it, the degrees, times cos 43. And I get 20.4779. And I look at the answers for 5A question 3B. And they want it to 2 decimal places, 20.48, and it doesn't give me a unit, so I'm going to leave it as 20.48, and that's correct. So when the pronumeral is on the bottom, to find a side, when the pronumeral is on top, and the pronumeral is in the numerator, I'm just going to say on top, you multiply. Okay. Let's do another quick one of those. And I'll do 3E. So again, follow the steps. Firstly, pick the right ratio. Well, I've got the angle. I don't have this side, and that's the hypotenuse. So I can't use anything that has hypotenuse in it. I've got this side, which is beside the angle or adjacent, and I need to find that side, which is opposite. So I look at my formula sheet and I go tan. Tan 24 degrees, and this is a bit harder because they've put minutes in there. I need to know how to do that in my calculator. Equals opposite, well, that's the x, over 40. Well, so I've got the same situation. I have a pronumeral on top, a pronumeral in the numerator. Well, I just multiply that 40 across. 40 tan 24 degrees and 5 minutes. I type that into my calculator, 40 tan 24. I press the degrees, minutes, seconds button. Up comes a little degree sign. Then I press 5 and I press it again. And you get another degree sign, but don't let that worry you. That's fine. Press equals. And I get 17.8789. 8789 equals x. And it goes on, ... And they want 2 decimal points, so 17.88 equals x. And 3E, that's correct. So, 3 steps, pick the right ratio, write an equation, solve the equation, and if the pronumeral's on top, just multiply that number away. So let's now have a look at question 4. Now I've asked you to do 4C, so I'm going to do 4F. Did I say for you to do 4F? I'm just having a look on the website. No, I've asked you only to do 1, so I'm going to do 4F. So here, I don't have the angle. That's okay. You can use trigonometry to find the angle. So 4F, I've got to pick the right ratio. So what have I got? I've got an angle. I've got the hypotenuse. I've got this side here, which is beside it, so it's adjacent. Again, I look at my formula sheet and I see what ratio uses that, and it's cosine. So cos of the angle, which I don't know, equals adjacent 4.2 over 6.8. And this is where I use the inverse. In America, they call it the arctan or arccos of that to get rid of cos. So I'm going to do the inverse cos, which is like, it's not like, it is undoing the cos, which will leave me with the angle. And inverse cos, 4.2 divided by 6.8. You can do it as a fraction if you want. And I get 51.855 ... It asks for the nearest minute. Well, that's really easy because I just press my degrees minutes button, which is 2 buttons above the 8, and I get 51 degrees, 51 minutes, 19.75 seconds. So the nearest minute, I now look at this. Because I'm dealing with minutes and degrees, my halfway point is 30. So if that bit is 30 or more, I will round up. It's not 30 or more, so I'll leave it as 51 degrees and 51 minutes. And if I look at 4F, that's correct. So let's go back here to our notes. I'm going to leave a bit of a gap there because I want to keep the sides together. To find an angle, you just inverse sine, inverse cos, or inverse tan. That's really easy. Let's have a look at 5. So 5 is a little bit more difficult. And I asked you to do 5C. So I'm going to do 5A. So 5A. It says find the angle. I've got to find the unknown side. So 5A. First step, pick the right ratio. Well, again, I've got the hypotenuse, I've got the angle, and I've got this side here, which is beside it or adjacent. So again, I'm going to use cos. So now I write the equation. Cos of the angle, 47, equals adjacent, 21, over x. And here's my issue. The x is in the denominator. It's in the bottom. So I'm going to show you how to do this, but don't do this every time. Once I've shown you, I can swap that x and that cos 47, but this is why it works. If I multiply both sides by x, that'll give me x times cos 47, which is a number, equals 21. That looks like a 7. I'll just fix that. Now I can divide by cos 47. I can divide by, because cos 47 is a number, and I'll get x equals 21 over cos 47. And as you can see, the x and the cos 47 have just switched position. But the mathematics of it is that I've multiplied by the x and I've divided by the cos 47. And now it's really easy because these are both numbers. I just enter that into my calculator. And I go 21 divided by cos 47, and I get 30.79 ... And they want it to 2 decimal places, which is 30.79. And they don't give me any units. And I look at 5A, and that's right. I'm going to do 5B without doing all that work. So B, I look at the equation. Again, I've got the hypotenuse, but this time I don't have the side beside 66. I have the side opposite. So I've got opposite and hypotenuse. I look at my formula sheet and it says opposite and hypotenuse, you should be using sine. I write the equation, sine of the angle 66 degrees, and that equals 21 over x. And again, I'm caught in this situation with the pronumeral in the denominator. I'm not going to go through and do those 2 steps I did before. I'm just going to swap them. So I'm going to say x equals 21 over sine 66, and that will give me my answer of 29.987. 2.987. It wants it to 2 decimal places, so I'm going to say 22.99. And that's the answer. So my last bit for finding this, to find a side with the pronumeral in the denominator or underneath. An easy way to remember is you divide. So they're my 3 steps for solving trig problems. Pick the right ratio, write the equation, and then solve the equation using one of these 3 methods. Either, if the pronumeral's on top, multiply it across. If the pronumeral's underneath, divide. Or if you're finding an angle, you're going to go inverse sine or inverse cos or inverse tan. All right, so good luck with that. And